Hello, everyone, and welcome to Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in to my podcast. This is SoundPaint. This was a concept that I created about 10 years ago with the drive to be rooted in a safe community for musicians, seeking music education from an angle of wanting to explore and enjoy sound and grow together. I also feel very strongly that there is a connection between art and music, and I really love to illustrate that in my music by really focusing on color and sound. Because basically light waves can be converted into color, and there is a connection there that one day I will dive deeper into. I promise. I've been getting so much feedback on wanting to hear more about the connection between light waves and sound waves, but I need to do a lot more studying before I really dive into that. But that aside, I love the idea of using color as my inspiration to write music, and that is the basis of what SoundPaint is. So for this week, I want to go more in depth with sequencers. Now, if you missed last week's episode, I touched on sequencers a little bit, but I didn't really go too deep with it. This week, I want to talk a bit more as to what a sequencer is and what its function is within music. A sequencer is kind of a strange thing. And speaking of strange things, if any of you are familiar with the show Stranger Things on Netflix, then you may be a bit more familiar with sequencers than you think. I can't actually show you the intro, but I bet I could play around with some sequencers that I already have as plugins right here in my Ableton Live 11 DAW. So before we begin, I want to do my best to describe the way that it sounds. It's an arpeggiating sound, which means that it's a chord. And actually, before I go too far into that, let me get my instrument up and running here, because we are playing with something called MIDI. And I'm not going to go into what MIDI is, but you can see it right here, MkII. For those of you who are just listening and don't have the visual cues, I am pointing to this track on Ableton Live 11 that is assigned to be a MIDI track. Now, MIDI, it's not an analog instrument. It's not really an instrument you can create the sound with your breath or with your fingers. It is a computer-generated sound that, until you assign an instrument to it, is really just computer data that tells you where to fill in sound and exactly what sound it's going to be. So what we're going to do is right now, we are going to apply an instrument to it. I know you guys know that I love my plugins, but I'm going to just use some of these sounds that are already come with Ableton Live 11. Okay, let's go up to sounds. And from here, I want to find Synth Rhythmic. Okay, that's interesting. Here's a sequencer. But I don't think that this is the kind of sequencer we're looking for. Oh, exactly what I was looking for. Okay, I'm going to stop that. Now, that is not exactly the pattern that Stranger Things uses, but it is so darn close. I'm going to put that over here. Now, what I did is I put this here, implying, and for those of you only listening, I applied this sound, this instrument, to my MIDI track. And now I have this instrument to work with, and I can go to my keyboard and play something. Now, if my memory serves me correct, I believe that the arpeggiating pattern, let me backtrack. I'm going to actually find a different instrument. I will come back to that one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go down to this MIDI instrument just because I don't want to lose that one. And I'm going to just try to find a piano. Here we go, piano and keys. Let's try this one. I'll drag that one over. Okay, let me explain something real quick. When you just heard all those notes, let me go back up here. When you hear all those notes, I'm only hitting one key on the piano. And unfortunately in this podcast, I can't really show you that right now, but all right. So on the piano, I have a keyboard, and this is what's controlling this sound. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit one key on the keyboard. And for those of you that want to know what that one key is, I'm playing a C. I'm going to play a C. I'm going to play it in the mid-range. All I'm doing right now is holding a C note, and it's arpeggiating all the notes that would make up a chord based on that first initial note. What I'm trying to do is find a sound that is only going to be one tone and not an arpeggio. Let's try. Okay, here's one note. Now I get to cheat a little bit. Even though I am playing the piano, I get to make a guitar sound. But I have to disarm that sound and arm this one. I like my low sounds. I'm going to go down lower. Okay, I'm going to go with a C minor chord. That's what I'm going to do. And I added an octave higher. So I'm starting on C. I'm hitting an E flat. I'm going up to a G, and then the octave C above that. And I'm trying to navigate around the microphone. Okay, it got better. And you know what? Side note, I just like illustrating that at first that kind of sucked. My timing wasn't great. I'm not saying it was perfect when I just finished, but it got better. And I always say that practice makes progress, not perfection. And I just illustrated that. No big deal. Okay, so there was technically an arpeggiator, but it was me actually doing all the work. I was the one hitting all the notes. Now, I'm going to disarm that guitar sound. Going back to this one, you're going to notice the timing is like spot on because I am not doing the work. I am just hitting one note and it is doing all the arpeggiation for me, but the pattern is going to be a little bit different because I didn't copy the pattern. Okay, so that's actually pretty close to the Stranger Things pattern, but if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I watched the show, but I think that the notes go up and then they go down. And these are just going down, but they're just doing it in different octaves. I kind of like it in the mid-range better. I think that this octave lower is just a little heavy. To change the color. You get to see me, well, for those of you watching this on YouTube, you get to see me changing the color of the track. So I have all these colors to choose from. I want you to just listen to this sound. I'm going to play it a little lower too. I know I just said I didn't like it, but I want to pick a color based on this low. It's kind of like a growl. I'm kind of getting like an army green kind of vibe. I don't know, maybe. So I'm going with it. I don't always question my creativity, and I think that's a good habit. You know, you don't want to question your creativity. You just want to do it. Okay, so again, I was only holding C. I still like it in the mid-range more, but I'm going to change notes. I'm going to do a sequence of, maybe I'll hold a C note, and then I'll go down to an A, and then I'll go to, I think a G. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to play C, then I'm going to change to an A, and then I'll go to a G. That's the tricky part when you play with sequencers. You really got to practice the timing, because if you don't, the pattern gets all thrown off on the which one's going to fall on the right beat. I'll try that one more time. I had it for a second. You know what? It has like this weird delay. Like I am hitting the key in time, but it's just not really wanting to change with me, but whatever. I'm having fun with it. Okay, there we go. I shouldn't have talked. All right, well, anyways, whatever. That was fun. I had fun. I hope you had fun too. Oh, wow. I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you again so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, or you want to see where we go next week, I would absolutely love it if you could follow me, because that way, every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, I send out the newsletter with the link in it for this podcast. Thanks again, and have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Bye.